So welcome again, and a very warm welcome to the first Siebel Hub webinar of this year, or the first Siebel Hub webinar really. That's a new format we're trying out. My name is Alexander Hansal with Black Sheep IT Consulting, and this webinar is labeled Siebel CRM in the cloud. So that's a big topic. That's a very broad topic, and let's dive in. So we are proud to host this webinar as part of the Siebel Hub Learning Experience. The Siebel Hub is the #1 place where you can get always up-to-date video and live training. We have training on cloud and container topics. There are 2 trainings that are listed, and stay tuned for updates on that. At the end of the webinar, we'll have an interesting update on those 2 classes. I also sent out a link to those who have pre-registered to take the Siebel Hub YouTube poll. I do these polls on a regular basis. It's not that they are truly representative because of the sheer low numbers that we have. But I put up 2 polls recently, and you might just follow the link, which I will put in the chat in a moment. And let's look at the poll itself. The first question is, the cloud is upon us, or isn't it? Describe your Siebel CRM cloud strategy as of March or April as we have it 2023. So the current state of this poll is that 56% say no cloud, no thank you. All on-prem, it's going to stay that way. 0 say we augment or integrate on-prem Siebel with cloud. Personally, I don't think that's correct. And hybrid, 11% run some but not all Siebel workloads on the cloud. And 33%, a third of the voters claim that we're live in cloud with production Siebel. So that's a very interesting number. And now in cloud, and this whole webinar is really cloud agnostic. So depends on your preferred vendor. Of course, Oracle is heavily involved with running Siebel in the Oracle cloud. There are different cloud vendors, which we listed in the second question. What is your vendor when you run Siebel in the cloud? What's your vendor? And well, of course, Oracle gets the majority here, but the other contenders are also listed, or even the mixed option, which is of course interesting. So stay with me for a second while I get the link for you. Okay. So if you look in the chat of this GoToMeeting, you will find a link there. Feel free to click it, click away for a moment, and take your vote in the poll, and I will update it and show it at the end of the presentation. Okay, so thanks for this. And now a few words on recent or current events regarding Siebel and Oracle Cloud. You might have heard about the Oracle CloudWorld Tour 2023 that is currently ongoing, and actually tomorrow there's a stopover in Tokyo, and next week there's a stopover in London. And if you're nearby and have time, of course, feel free to register. There is a lot more information on the Oracle website on that. I understand that the Oracle Applications Unlimited team is available on the premises of the CloudWorld Tour in London, and also, so I heard, Abu Dhabi. And if anybody from Oracle is here and wants to say a word or 2 about this, please feel free.
Hi, yes, it's Richard Spearman.
Hi,
Yeah,
Richard.
we'll be there next week at the event, and Apps Unlimited will be. We've actually got a stand at the event, and we'll be demonstrating the product, some of the new features, and also talking to customers about their particular Siebel implementations and what their plans are for the future. So we can talk about roadmap and a few things like that. John, did you want to add anything?
Okay.
Hi, sorry, just trying to find the microphone.
Hi, John.
Yeah, yeah. No, if anyone's passing through, just get in touch with Richard or I, and we can have a chat over coffee for sure.
Okay, yeah, thanks much, Richard and John. Sorry. And yeah, talking about the roadmap, as Richard says, there's a very interesting and expected development recently. As of March, Oracle happens to extend or have extended in the past, and this year is no exception, the premier support for Applications Unlimited, of course, including Siebel CRM, to at least December 2034. Now that's a number that's hard to spell even. Okay, so yeah, another 1 year added to the every 1 year increase by 1 year. So that's good to hear and good to know. And of course, there's in the usual places, there's more information about that. Okay, and yeah, there's another webinar upcoming. So after the webinar, there's the next webinar. I'll let John say a few words about this webinar.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, we have an Oracle webinar coming up middle of May. It's part of a series of Apps Unlimited webinars that focus on Apps Unlimited products running on OCI. And what we're trying to do in this webinar that's coming up is not just talk about the various cost savings that you can get from putting Siebel on OCI and improvements in agility, but really zone into some of the other aspects that maybe people are not aware of, like how to use Cloud Manager for lift and shift, how to use containers and Kubernetes on OCI, things like that. So hopefully after you go through this webinar today and the one coming up, you pretty much should have everything you need to try it out.
Okay, great. Thanks, John, for this. And yeah, let's take a step back as we start proper with, well, what's it with Siebel CRM in the cloud? How can you run Siebel CRM in 2023? What deployment options do you really have? Of course, on premises, the birthplace of Siebel CRM, so to speak, traditional data center as you have it, or a cloud fashion management styled private data center, you can run Siebel there. The pros, of course, are well known: the ownership, the full control that you have over the deployment, over the security. You can follow all the respective regulations in your country, and data sovereignty is, of course, also a big pro, because you know where the data is to the last, let's say, bit on a spinning or non-spinning disk in your racks. On the con side, you have, again, funny enough, security, because you might not meet the standards of modern cloud data centers. Scalability is hard because you have to procure additional hardware first, etc. And so that could result in high total cost of ownership for full on-premises deployments. So in the past, hybrid forms of deploying Siebel have been used. Hybrid means a lot. It could be that you migrate some workloads of Siebel to IaaS, infrastructure as a service, for example, test environments or training environments. And you can also augment or integrate Siebel with platform or software as a service offerings from either Oracle or other vendors such as Oracle Analytics, former Siebel Analytics, Mobility, options, etc. Okay, and the pro side, of course, on hybrid is you can go at your own pace. You can go piecemeal. You have the isolation that you might want of the product that you want to integrate with Siebel on premises. And on the con side, you incur additional costs. Besides running on-prem, you run some cloud workloads as well. And you have the cost for the integration, and you create data silos effectively by replicating the data maybe between cloud and on-prem. And then, of course, we have full cloud, public or private mode. So with Oracle, you have Cloud at Customer, for example. That's the all-in scenario where you reach a state where you run your Siebel production environment in the cloud. And of course, using the cloud vendors' ability to provide a very highly scalable, high available environment with best-in-class security, best-in-class hardware and networking, because those data centers are really huge and serve a lot of workloads in parallel. On the con side, very often quoting customers is the loss of sovereignty. You just give part of your infrastructure up to the vendor. You can risk vendor lock-in. And there might be, in your team, there might be knowledge gaps how to use the cloud resources properly. And there might be hidden costs that, well, bite you when you look at your monthly bill, like network egress costs for copying data back from the cloud on-prem, etc. So these are just examples, but it's a, let's say, a printout in time of what is possible today, how you can run Siebel. And from another perspective, we have the machine types. And that's also independent of whether you run in cloud or not. In your private data center, you also need machines. And those machines can be bare metal or dedicated hardware, which in Siebel typically is used for databases or high performance Siebel servers, for example, that have high workloads. Of course, best-in-class hardware is powerful, but also very expensive. But you have, of course, full control of what's installed. You have no noisy neighbors. You're not sharing that hardware with anything else. It's just for that workload. So that's an isolation perspective, but also security perspective. You would agree, if you look into your deployments of Siebel, that I'd say a number now, 90% of the Siebel workloads running on virtual machines, or close to that. Virtual machines, of course, being a well-established deployment strategy for over 2 decades, and can be easily replicated in the cloud by simply literally copying virtual machines over to the cloud data center and starting them up there. So that's very common. No need to say more about virtual machines, really. Containers is, let's say, the latest evolutionary step in deployment, and we'll focus a little bit on that. Containers make the best use of the available hardware. You can squeeze a lot of workloads on the existing hardware, so that is good for scalability. But containers are also very good for automation. If you want to automate deployments or updates, that's the way to go. And in the Siebel perspective, containers are available for quite a long time. Oracle has been offering solutions around containerizing Siebel CRM since Siebel 18. So containers are the latest evolutionary step, not the last one probably, but we'll see what comes next. So traditional deployment has you, well, as you see on the left, install hardware, install the operating system. You need to manually update the operating system probably, and you need to manually install the applications like your Siebel server or your Siebel AI on top of the operating system. And then you have a, well, bare metal machine running that Siebel software. In a virtualized environment, in the middle of the diagram, you still need hardware, of course, with an operating system, but you install a hypervisor And a hypervisor like VMware, etc., lets you run several virtual machines on the same hardware. The problem with virtual machines is that you have to replicate the operating system. So you can run Linux and Windows on the same host machine as a guest, but still you have a full version of the operating system, taking resources and needing maintenance and updates, etc. So taking the operating system out of the equation, that replicated operating system, is actually what containers do. So you see that when you have the hardware and a host operating system on it, you can install a container runtime, such as the likes of Docker, and then run containers, multiple containers in parallel. And you can make the containers as small as you want to. For Siebel, there's actually two approaches currently, which we'll discuss in a moment. Imagine that Siebel server, that one app box here, that's a Siebel server. So that Siebel server becomes a container. That's a very common architecture when you containerize Siebel, or that AI becomes one other container. Your 3 gateways for the cluster are 3 additional containers that you can deploy on, well, not necessarily the same hardware, but even across the network or across regions in the cloud. Again, this is cloud agnostic, and containers are not necessarily just living in the cloud. You can run containers on premises as well. So if we put all this together with Siebel CRM, with the latest evolutionary step, containers, and the options you have to run Siebel in the cloud, what combinations do we have currently at the time of this webinar? So first, you could start out with building your own containers. So install Docker, for example, and then create these Docker images yourself, maintain them yourself in a repository or wherever, and use them wherever you want, on any cloud vendor's infrastructure or on-premises infrastructure. Oracle has been offering for quite a while now pre-built containers. So that's like the second option, really, where Oracle provides containers through the ARU, that's the Automated Release Update System. You can take these containers from Oracle, and more coming up in a few minutes, and deploy them in your preferred cloud or on-prem. So the first two options are really agnostic. You can use any cloud or on-prem infrastructure to run these containers. They're containers after all. For the sake of completeness, I keep in this slide the OCI Marketplace image, which some of you might remember, which was an Oracle Marketplace in the cloud, now retired, the image that used the Jenkins pipeline to pull containers and create an enterprise. That was a nice little playground, but got retired and eventually replaced more or less by the third active options you have, Siebel Cloud Manager, or SCM. We'll talk about this, of course, in a bit more detail. So details coming up. I don't list out what are the specifics of SCM. And then, of course, you can go your own way. Outside, besides SCM, you can engage with Oracle, ACS, or partner companies, integrators, and migrate or install Siebel CRM on Oracle Cloud infrastructure in the way you like it. So that's, of course, also an option. And both of these second half of options, the number 3 and 4, are specific to Oracle Cloud infrastructure. Okay, let's go through these 4 options in a little bit more detail. So what does it mean, build your own containers? That's a start. As a starting point, you might want to go to GitHub /Oracle Siebel. That's the GitHub repository of the Oracle Siebel team, where you will find a full, let's say, case study of containerizing Siebel. This has been around since a few years, has been updated for the MDE architecture, for example, and it's a very good way if you want to understand how do I containerize Siebel? How do I make a container of a Siebel installer, etc.? To go through that case study and actually use it as a learning or training environment. So it will not produce a production environment magically, but it will teach you how to containerize Siebel deployment. So that's a very good starting point. If you decide not to roll your own containers, then you might want to be interested in the pre-built Siebel Docker images from Oracle, which Oracle provides through the ARU. This is at the time of this webinar, is still in limited availability. So as a customer, you would have to raise an SR with My Oracle support to get access to those images. And then once you are able to access the images and download them, you can run them on any infrastructure, on-prem or in the cloud. Since a few months, actually 22.6 was the version when Oracle published the bookshelf guide for that ARU, the automated release update option for container. It was previously only available through Oracle support. So if you want to read up before you use this, there's a bookshelf guide waiting for you in bookshelves higher than 22.6. Okay, since we have now we went past the non-Oracle Cloud options, agnostic options, so you can run containers on any infrastructure you want. Now let's shift the focus a little bit on Oracle Cloud in 2023. So if you go to cloud.oracle.com or just oracle.com, you're presented with a vast array of information, and that's a lot of cloud infrastructure options and a lot of cloud application options, including, of course, Oracle Database, Analytics, AI, the whole infrastructure, networking, security, and the cloud application. So there's a vast array of products that Oracle offers on their cloud platform as of today. So I just put together some snippets from the internet really to illustrate the sheer size of Oracle Cloud is impressive. I don't know exactly how many data centers currently are operational, but there are in the dozens, I think close to 30 or more than 30. And you see, if you browse the internet a little bit in that regard, you will see that Oracle expands into regions across the planets, like in Saudi Arabia recently. And Oracle becomes recognized for this over the past few years to, well, now entering in competition with the big three cloud hyperscalers, the big three, that is Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. So Oracle joining those hyperscalers is an interesting development from, let's say, something that people didn't even realize. Oh, Oracle has a cloud, I didn't know that, to, wow, Oracle is now among the big four hyperscalers. And of course, the attention shift also goes towards multi-cloud. That means you don't want to lock in on one vendor. You want to use the best of breed options that are maybe across vendors. So Oracle has, for example, is touting the Microsoft Azure cloud and the interconnect from Microsoft Azure officially. So that's a thing. And also a thing is the Oracle Kubernetes engine, or OKE, which we will see again shortly as an option to run Siebel on. So this gentleman has also a great history on LinkedIn, and he just holds up literally a whiteboard where Oracle crashes the hyperscaler party. The big three are now big four. So that's the perception that is on the internet. You might have heard Uber selecting Oracle Cloud, and you might have heard about the recent earnings. So, okay, we have to acknowledge, and of course with delight, we acknowledge that Oracle has, well, turned around literally and became a cloud hyperscaler, so a very valid option to run business critical workloads. Okay, so now on to the first option that is purely Oracle Cloud. That is the Siebel Cloud Manager, was made generally available last summer. And SCM has 3 different use cases. So you can take an existing on-prem or virtual machined deployment, not necessarily on-prem, it can be running on cloud already. Why not? And you can use it to actually lift and shift these existing Siebel deployments to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. There's a Siebel Lift utility provided as part of SCM, which you use for that exact purpose. So it's really surprising when you see it for the first time. You have to rub your eyes as you see that Siebel Lift utility capture an entire Siebel enterprise, package it, upload it to object storage in cloud infrastructure. That's something to watch. You can also use SCM for a second use case, that is greenfield deployment. So install a fresh Siebel enterprise, either with the choice of the sample database or the vanilla empty Siebel database. And the third use case for SCM is ongoing maintenance. So that means you have the enterprise created with SCM and now you want to administer and maintain it and update it. So that's also through SCM. We will talk about the target architecture in a little bit more detail. So just for a teaser, the target architecture is what really sets Siebel Cloud Manager apart from just running an installer, a Siebel installer, because the target architecture is a Kubernetes cluster of stateful sets and pods, and each individual Siebel server that, for example, you lift and shift becomes a pod in the Kubernetes cluster. Each gateway, each AI becomes a pod, and you get a few pods on top of that, like a load balancer and stuff. So again, I'm getting excited. Hold back until the architecture slide. That's what Oracle refers to as the traditional CRM architecture. So IP17, post IP17 architecture is now the traditional CRM architecture in that respect. And you have certainly heard about Oracle planning to release a new architecture, Siebel Component Services, formerly known as Siebel Cloud Native Architecture. That SCS, Siebel Component Services Architecture, is currently in beta, so available to customers who sign the beta agreement. So that's another architecture that SCM can produce. The other and the next interesting aspect on the architecture is that it's a GitOps based architecture. So the entire Siebel enterprise configuration is stored as YAML files in GitLab. Okay, so that's quite a lot in one slide. When can you start using that? SCM supports Siebel 18.12 or higher for lift and shift if it is installed on Windows or Oracle Enterprise Linux. Only those 2 operating systems are supported for lift and shift sources. The lift and shift source database and the resulting target database are both Oracle, naturally the target. And you also require, of course, an OCI tenancy. We have a training course, a video training out there on the Siebel Hub, more on that at the end of the course. And since March, there is a bookshelf guide on SCM, so you can read up all about it. So a bit more on the architecture. We kind of zoom in a little bit, so you see the resulting architecture, the classic CRM, if you will, where you can make out a big Kubernetes cluster managed by Oracle Kubernetes Engine in OCI with pods for SMC, AI, Cloud Gateway, SES, and a load balancer, an ingress controller, and Nginx added automatically. So you can access that load balancer from the public internet and start using your Siebel applications through the browser or the REST interfaces at that. Cloud Manager itself also provides a REST interface to actually run the whole provisioning process, monitoring, or for other administrative tasks. You notice that this Cloud Manager machine, just get a pen here, that Cloud Manager machine, that's a machine running on OCI. That's like you start out with that machine and you connect it up to GitLab or install GitLab if you don't have it. So that's your two machines that you start out with. And once Cloud Manager has been used to establish, well, the whole architecture bit, including setting up the database, the Kubernetes cluster, the file system, for lift and shift, your data is moved there. And the interesting part is the enterprise configuration part. The enterprise configuration part is then put in here into GitLab under version control. And once you modify it, let's say you add some parameters or you add new components to Siebel servers or new Siebel servers, you do this using YAML files in GitLab, and a Siebel controller Flux implementation actually monitors these changes and, layman's terms, tells Kubernetes to, well, make the necessary changes to reflect that new definition. So this is also known as GitOps. So besides the Kubernetes cluster that you have out of the SCM, you also have a GitOps or infrastructure as a code way of managing your Siebel enterprise. So why do we say GitOps? Because it's similar to source code, to program code management, where you have version controlled software that you deploy. That's more or less DevOps. So GitOps refers to the fact that your operations are also version controlled in Git, or of course any other version control system. SCM uses GitLab at the current time, and hence we say GitOps. So there's a single source of truth in your GitLab, and when you modify that, it becomes the source of truth for Kubernetes, and it applies the changes. So it's really also something to behold when you do it the first time. When you change a parameter, you commit it in GitLab, and a few moments later, the parameter change arrives in the infrastructure. Yeah, so very close to magic, I would say, for a seasoned Siebel veteran. Okay, so much for Cloud Manager. So Cloud Manager is a very streamlined but also very tight environment. So it creates that architecture, and you can't break out of it. You can only modify it later within the boundaries of Kubernetes cluster. So if you, let's say, not into Kubernetes, you just want to have your Siebel high available production environment in Oracle Cloud, then Oracle provides you with a reference architecture. And yeah, once this video is published, you will have all the links, clickable links in the YouTube description, by the way. So there's a reference architecture, there's documentation with diagrams like the one shown in the screenshot, where you can see, okay, what are the principles of building a high availability Siebel environment, failover security environment across regions with Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, which is probably the choice for production environments. You want to have as much as failover capabilities as possible. And Oracle can help you with that, as they provide lift services for Applications Unlimited. So again, check out the links on the Oracle website for details on the lift services or the general principles of migrating on-prem applications unlimited to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Okay, is someone actually doing that, running Siebel production in Oracle Kubernetes engine? The answer is yes. It's a very popular case study. I'm not naming any names here, but this case study was also presented in a recent Siebel Friday, so you can find the video on YouTube. And was also presented on Oracle CloudWorld. This very large US airline has migrated all their Siebel applications, including Siebel Loyalty, to OCI using Oracle Kubernetes engine. So they have this architecture that we have described. They haven't used Cloud Manager because it wasn't available back then. And it's running the largest airline loyalty program, one of the largest on the planet, with an astounding number of 30 million web service requests per day, 16 terabyte database, plus all the loyalty workloads and the user sessions in, well, this new kind of architecture. It's live in production. The results, as reported by this customer, the cloud architecture is more or less self-healing as Kubernetes engine keeps the desired number of components up and running at all times. Scalability has increased. The customer also mentioned they are now ready for Siebel component services when it becomes available, readiness for real-time AI integration, modern cloud integration because you're live in the cloud, and increased benefits in the observability area. So that's a very impressive case study, and yeah, do take your time to watch it. Another case study, let's say from the lower end of size of in production environments as they get, is a German sports federation, which has recently migrated the Siebel test and production environments, not development as of yet, to OCI using a more classic approach. Virtual machines running on OCI. They report a 30 to 40% cost savings as compared to the previous hosting model that they had for Siebel CRM, which is also quite an impressive testament. We mentioned that Oracle is planning on releasing at an unknown date the Siebel Component Services Architecture, or SCS, formerly known as Cloud Native Architecture for Siebel, currently in beta, so you have to sign an agreement to get any insight on that. What we know so far, we know from videos that Oracle made public 2 years ago, roughly, in 2020, I guess it was. And on those videos, it's still referred to as Cloud Native Architecture, but you can get some insight from those resources. So the new way of looking at the Siebel architecture as a cluster of containers is not just see a Siebel server as a container or an AI. That's actually a big chunk. A Siebel server can host hundreds of components. Rather than that, the approach is to see each individual server component as a container, a pod in a stateful set. So a workflow process manager, EI object manager, application object manager, and any other component literally becomes a pod, which of course increases the manageability, observability, and scalability even more than the Kubernetes approach that we have for the classic CRM architecture. Also allowing new ways of, for example, delivery, always no downtime scenarios, or event publishing and subscription with the likes of Apache Kafka and so. So this is really going deep down the rabbit hole of the cloud native principles established by the Cloud Native Computing Foundations. You can read up on that. Principles that are listed here: containerization, observability, orchestration, all implemented by those open source tools that are also visible on the screenshot. So that is interesting times ahead when the Siebel Component Services architecture becomes publicly available. Of course, it's not known to myself or anyone outside Oracle when that would be. On the other side, other than deploying Siebel CRM itself on Oracle Cloud or any other cloud, there's also the question of augmentation. So that means you use specific cloud services from Oracle or other vendors to augment Siebel CRM, either in an integration way, you share data, or you share, for example, the service interfaces, for example, with AI services. So over the past 2 years, Oracle has been adding, at an increasing pace really, has been adding standard integrations with, just to name a few Oracle Cloud applications here: Unity, CrowdTwist, Analytics Cloud, Field Service Cloud, Clinical One, just very recently in 23.1, Intelligent Advisor, long-time integration there, and AI services. You might remember 22.10, where the OCI AI integration was standardized, so there was a standard integration. Of course, you can always configure and implement your own integration with the REST API of the cloud or whatever, but these are pre-built integration touch points. Okay, so a lot of information, hopefully useful information for you. So as a Siebel professional, there's a certain learning path emerging if you want to stay current with the development. So Siebel in the cloud is not just a, let's say, niche or exotic deployment. It's becoming commonplace. So as a Siebel professional, you might already feel the need to prepare for that, or you just might want to, let's say, advance your career into that respect. So the learning path, one possible learning path could start at really understanding containers. So we have been talking about that Oracle GitHub case study there, which can help you get that understanding. You can also read the bookshelf guide or contact Oracle to understand the Siebel as container offerings, the ARU offerings that we have discussed. That would be a second step or next step in that learning path. Also, if your vendor is Oracle, you might want to start a certification journey for Oracle Cloud Infrastructure if your tasks include the administration of Siebel in OCI. Of course, replace that with any other cloud vendor if you choose that other vendor. And one next step would be, or could be, understanding SCM, Siebel Cloud Manager. So again, you can read up or take a Siebel Hub training to learn more about Cloud Manager, take the first steps there. And of course, component services architecture is imminent. So another step in your learning path might be getting more information about that. And then go forward to, well, learn more on cloud native architecture or dive deeper into cloud native architecture with getting certified on Kubernetes, Kafka, GitOps, etc., which of course is generic, not necessarily related to Siebel or Oracle Cloud. All right, so there we have it. We're back at slide 1. The Siebel Hub Learning Experience is proud to be the #1 choice for many customers for current, always up-to-date video and live training on Siebel CRM. I mentioned that we have 2 current trainings on containers and cloud, and video training available on Siebel Cloud Manager. And since you waited through the whole webinar for now, now's the time to announce the discount code if you want to use these video trainings for your learning path. Then remember to type in the code GoSiebel23 to get a 50% discount. Okay. All right. There we go. And with that, a big thank you to all of you who joined. And I'll keep the lines open for a moment for maybe we can get into a Q&A session. Use the chat if you want to post some questions or comments there, or how you like the webinar. You'll find us on siebelhub.com. You'll find us on YouTube, or send me an email. Always happy to chat. Okay, first questions coming in on the chat from Kieran. Is the document server restricted to Windows? So that's, to my knowledge, yes, since it uses that Microsoft Office installation, so it's still the Windows-based, but it might be best to talk to Oracle to get the latest developments on that. Okay, another question. Hello?
Hi, Alex.
Hi, John.
Hi, it's John from Oracle. If whoever asked that question, you can just put some details in the chat or follow up with you offline. It is in our future roadmap, our statement direction, to remove Windows dependencies in the product. Classic example, it is like document server and proposal generator. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it'd be good just to connect outside this webinar to make sure we've got everything checked, which is required.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, document server being a long time Windows resident. Yeah. Another question from Pradipta in the chat: for an intranet Siebel application where load is static and predictable, is there a use case of deploying Siebel as pods? So in a container, in an orchestrated container architecture? Well, that depends. The answer here probably depends. So you're saying the workload is static and very predictable, then I would say from that perspective, it's not really absolutely necessary to use a container-based orchestrated architecture, since the benefit of that is actually the scalability, the quick scalability, and you don't need that, right? But you might have other benefits from deploying Siebel in a container-based orchestrated architecture that might include, of course, increased scalability, but other benefits as well. So sorry for the broad answer here. So then, okay, you're welcome, Pradipta. Vimal says in the chat, thank you for the session. It was wonderful. Thanks, Vimal, for the feedback. With Kubernetes-based offering hitting the market, there would be more adoption, and subsequently open source softwares would need to be adopted embedded. Does Oracle have a plan for augmenting the OSS ecosystem with regards to Siebel CRM? So that's a question to Oracle here regarding the vast array of open source software that is, for example, within Kubernetes and Flex and GitLab, etc. So yeah.
Yeah, hi Alex. I can try and answer that one. Mm-hmm. And I think you touched on it earlier with talking about Siebel Component Services and our ambition to optimize the architecture to be as closely aligned to cloud native principles as possible. As a result of that direction, we will need to adopt a lot of open source solutions, and we do feel that is more beneficial for our customers as well. So, you know, they don't get completely locked down with our own technologies, so to speak. And it's just kind of the way the world's moving as well, to more kind of open source solutions within an ecosystem. But I will say that, you know, while we talk about Siebel Component Services is still in beta, and we were looking for customers to adopt that and work with us before we would even think of making that a GA solution. So really, it all depends what we hear from our customers. And whilst we talk about a cloud native architecture, Siebel as an application, it isn't cloud native, right? And it won't be cloud native in its entirety. But what we can do is align as closely as possible to the principles of cloud native software architectures, which is defined by the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. They have like a trail map. It's got about 8 or 9 key things that make up cloud native solutions. And some of them you've already seen trickling into our architecture. So the ability to, you know, run Siebel's containers and Kubernetes. I think we have Kafka streaming available in May in the product. We're looking at messaging and stuff like that in the observability and messaging in the statement direction. So the more enhancements we can make to the architecture that follow those cloud native principles, you know, the Siebel application architecture will evolve to be fairly close to a cloud native solution.
Okay, that's a great answer. Thanks, John, very much. So
I think the key point is not to talk about Siebel as being cloud native, because it won't be cloud native.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
But we can learn from cloud native solution architectures and align to those principles as closely as possible to bring the benefits to our customers.
Yes, and to me personally, and as a Siebel professional, it's a huge testament to the capabilities of the, let's say, the people who implemented Siebel in the first place in the 90s, in the mid 90s of the last millennium, and today pushing it into completely unprecedented architectures, and still works at the largest scale imaginable. So that's a huge testament to the stability and the skills of all the persons involved from the beginning, the birth of Siebel, if you will, to now, where it makes its way into a cloud nativized, if that's a word, architecture.
Yeah, and it's also very challenging for us as an engineering organization, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
To evolve the product in such a way, and secondly, our customers are not all the same, and they don't all move in the same direction.
Right.
So what we have to cater for is all different types of architecture and cloud adoption and cloud strategy. But what does come out of this is a solution which is very flexible and gives customers choice.
Yeah.
Which is something that our competitors can't actually say.
Yeah. Okay. There's one more question from Pradipta in the chat. When you deploy Siebel in cloud, how does it integrate with other on-premise applications? Like you keep your, let's say, your ERP still on-prem, or your Active Directory, and Siebel is now in the cloud. And the answer here is, on a very high level, is, as I've seen with customers, is tunnels, private networking, VPNs literally, that are created with Oracle product called Fast Connect. That's literally the networking product that connects Oracle Cloud to your premises in a secure and fast way. And any other cloud vendor would have a similar offering. So if you Google for Oracle Fast Connect, you get into the right direction there. Okay.
Yeah, Alex, I think there's a technical architecture document, isn't there? Is it on Oracle support, which goes through all those intricacies of architecting Siebel on OCI. We don't actually hear about problems with latency and stuff like that for our customers that have deployed to OCI.
It's literally let's say from I'm not using it myself, but it's like being connected right to the backbone of the internet. So you're using the same infrastructure that Oracle uses to connect their data centers or global cloud vendors use, and that's actually super fast. Could even be faster than networking between private data centers. So that I've heard about those measurements being taken and people being very, very happy with the latencies and stuff. Okay, another question coming in. It's time for one more. Is it? John has posted a link here. Pradipta asks, is it possible to keep the database and file system on-premise and the rest in cloud? Yes, so in that regard, with a secure tunneling virtual networking solution like Oracle Fast Connect, it doesn't matter what is on-premise, what's on cloud. So technically speaking, of course, there might just be the simple, or the bandwidth, the amount of data, the data volume being transferred. That, of course, could be a limitation there, or a cost factor. Okay, so okay, no other questions there. We have reached the end of the planned hour for the webinar. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining, for listening in on our first webinar. So hope we can keep up with the new format and bring you the latest information from the Siebel Hub. Again, please do use the code on getting the latest Siebel training. Thanks, everybody. And yeah, have a great day or evening. Bye-bye. Take care. Okay, this is an auxiliary recording for the Siebel Hub webinar, Siebel in the Cloud. During the webinar, forgot to come back to the poll. Here is the poll results right after the webinar. So we have got a few more votes. Still more or less the same results. I see that the live cloud in production number went a little bit down from 33 to 30%. And Oracle is still the leading cloud vendor for more than half of the respondents.